So until the technical issue is resolved here, today we'll be talking about the concept of the metaverse. Now, the idea of the metaverse is a word that has received a lot of hype over the previous few years, and also skepticism. So in today's discussion, we'll talk about, we'll talk about, is it, are you skeptical about the metaverse? Is it really a hype or is it really a thing? So we'll talk about that. And we'll proceed with the discussion of talking about the metaverse stakeholders. Who are the benefits? Who are the beneficiaries of the metaverse? Who are the winners with the metaverse? What does the current state of the metaverse look like? And we'll try to actually talk about real use cases that we have estimated at Analytics for Everyone and Carnegie Mellon for companies that are based here in Pittsburgh, that they could save billions and billions of dollars by implementing the metaverse. We'll talk about a few of these use cases during today's discussion. Now, we'll look through the metaverse landscape, and then we'll suggest some sort of a roadmap for those companies who are looking to build capabilities in the metaverse domain. As we talk about this, we realize that the metaverse has some challenges. It's facing some boundaries that is preventing it from evolving. With that, the generative AI and the evolution of it came to address a lot of the challenges that the metaverse is facing or used to face. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about real companies, and we'll try to mention as many numbers as we can to link the discussion here with a real industrial context. So with that, without further ado, let's just go ahead and discuss the introduction to the metaverse. Now, I want to build on, the other great talks by other speakers here at the summit, and we're looking at AI right now to be the domain where, in the future, it's gonna make all the major buying decisions for us, and that's not very far. Maybe if you have had that discussion 5 years ago, our perception would have been different. In reality right now, we're looking at the AI to take the majority of the buying decisions very soon. And that's really with the innovation of a lot of the technologies that are happening. We're talking about mixed realities, virtual realities, augmented realities. All of these technologies, the combination of them is boosting that direction. Now, talking about the AI, there is a company that actually made or released a statement about the future of the metaverse, and I want to quote. They said, the metaverse is the ideal playground for AI because it provides a perfect place for AI to let steam off, or to let off steam. And if you think about it, this is true. The more humans lose it in the metaverse, the more AI will take over. And I know this sounds scary when I say that, but I think we're past this point now. We are at a phase where, the AI is happening, the generative AI wave is there, and we can choose it, or we can leverage it to our own advantage if we make the most out of it. So there are definitely certain opportunities in the domain of the metaverse that I would love to talk about some of them in today's discussion. Now, what I would like to start with is this graph here. Initially, when Web 2.0 came out, which is what we define today, our current interpretation of the internet, it came out as an evolution of the old static informative way of the internet. And it came with a lot of user interactiveness and content generation that was mainly supported by social media. Now, as we kept evolving, and as AI kept evolving over the years, people have started to become readier and readier for a more interactive, more immersive experience. We're looking for things like technologies like the blockchain. We're looking for right now a newer innovation that's called the semantic web, where actually the internet understands, or the computers understand what the data are, rather than just innovate, like disseminate the data, like how it's currently used in Web 2.0. And we're looking at more machine learning algorithms. We're looking at more decentralized operation for security and for many, many other reasons. And that's the perfect expectation. That's the perfect world where the metaverse can jump on. Why? The metaverse requires, pretty much it's the idea of a virtual world. We're trying to build a virtual world or virtual worlds, connect them together, and have them run in some sort of a decentralized, interoperable way. And that's what Web 3.0 will offer to us. So some people use those two terms, interchangeably. They are not the same, but they are closely related. That innovation in Web 3.0 will enable huge advancement in the domain of the metaverse. Now, the word of the metaverse has started to come up like in 2020. That was really the hype. Meta had that hype coming up with the term metaverse. And then things started to slow down a little bit for a year or so until the generative AI came up again. And with the rise of generative AI, the metaverse is now back to life. And I'm here to share with you a perspective that we at Analytics for Everyone and Carnegie Mellon University believe that it has a very high potential for its future. We're here to talk about how customer-facing products can significantly be improved with the leverage of the concept of the metaverse. Now, you may ask yourself, should I really care about the metaverse? Is it really a thing for me? Now, if your company is offering one of these services that you're seeing on the screen, then the metaverse can help you build brand in innovation in one of these domains. Now, whether you're offering customer services, you may need to use digital humans for that, replace the actual humans for a better, more immersive experience. And it's not going to be like a replacement. To be clear here, it's more of providing that experience at more convenient places rather than having people commute to maybe areas that are quite far from them. If you're offering training, then the gamification can be a huge advantage to you that you can use with leveraging the concept of the metaverse. And I'm going to leave here pretty much this, whether you're doing sales, trading, events, whether you're holding meetings, there is definitely a place for you here to leverage the metaverse at. And I keep talking about it as this is something that's going to happen 5 years from now. Like, look at the Australian Open. For those of you who make sports or tennis, they were actually having their own virtual world for the Australian Open, where the people actually who were attending the tennis games were able to have shared experiences among themselves, even those who are sitting outside the stadium and couldn't get a space to enter the stadium. So there was also a celebrity cruise that happened last year, and that was pretty much just another event for celebrities, just 2022. And we use the metaverse for that. So what we're talking about are real things that are happening. Now, I want to just take a sneak peek here into something that we'll talk about shortly after, in the future, but in a future slide. But I want to give a hint about it now. Now, we have done some analysis on what the capabilities that companies who are here in the Pittsburgh area can provide and can use it with, can use the metaverse for. For example, talking about a popular bank here, and PNC, I think I'm allowed to say the name, I'm not going to say anything bad about them. So PNC Bank, they have the 5th largest number of branches across the United States, about 2,600 branches. Now, according to their financial report that was just done by the end of, like mid-2023, the end of fiscal year, and they have listed that their expenses, their operating expenses, are about $500 billion. Now, we did some math on the side And feel free to use that information. I'm happy also to provide the math behind this. We did some math to estimate how the metaverse can help them. And we felt that there is a huge opportunity by replacing the current branches. Like, you're having a lot of the assets that you're paying either rent or cost of maintenance, and you're holding these in separate locations. You could definitely leverage, if we can replace those big branches that you have with smaller areas on the street, or even replacing, maybe downsizing the actual geographic location, or the actual geographic, the actual branch to maybe half of the size of it, and downsizing the number of employees that are running by leveraging the metaverse. So a customer will come in, and then they will have like a true immersive experience. They will not be dealing with a real person, with just a virtual person. But that virtual person could be helping someone in that branch, another person in another branch later on. So you have like some sort of a mobile base. With that in mind, with the basic calculation that we have done, PNC could save up to $100 billion every year with that transition from the regular, traditional way of providing customer service to metaverse-oriented way of doing it, just by retaining the same employees, just providing those metaverse-related experiences. We could even leverage generative AI to stand out in that domain and solve some of the issues that we'll talk about with the metaverse to save what was estimated to be between $120 and $130 billion every year of their operating expenses. Yes, so some examples. You have the branch. You go in, there are between 5 and 10 people that are helping you, whether they are branch manager, legal members. You have some maybe customer service members. Now the utilization rate for those members vary depending on the role. Like the bank tellers, they're more close to 100%. But the branch manager or the legal members, the utilization rate for them is really it varies. So that was really the basis. Now look at the salaries that you're paying for these. If we can just look at how we can have those sitting in a central location where they are using the metaverse experience and just broadcasting their knowledge across all of the potential different locations that you will have, then that will solve a lot of problems. Now, one may ask, well, why don't we just offer the metaverse headset and have them connect with a VR headset from home? That's where the future eventually will be. But right now, we still have some security risks associated with the metaverse. So I'm talking about like literally a short-term plan that can be implemented between now and 3 years without having to address the security issues that are related to metaverse that can happen later on. But right now, I'm talking about immediate savings that could go up to $100 billion. Okay? All right, so now let's get back here to, should I care about the metaverse? If you're offering one of these, you absolutely should. Now, here I want to talk about the current state of the metaverse, and I have a few slides to talk about it. By the way, so this screenshot is from Gartner. Gartner is a popular R&D firm, and they had actually Verbella, co-founder, was sitting with one of the Gartner, authors in order to actually tell them the information about, hey, what they're building, what they're offering, and what they can do in the future. So the metaverse is really happening. Now, as of current state, we still don't have a standard definition of what the metaverse is and what it can do. Now, I know this may sound, well, that's too fuzzy. Well, don't worry, that's really what happened with most of early technologies. Like starting from the 1980s, there was that kind of even we call it constant war between IBM, Apple, and Commodore, trying to define what is the home PC, what should it look like, how it should be defined. And they started with, no one really had the full idea in mind in what the home PC back then can do. And until someone would get the super dominance on the domain later on. Now this also happened with cloud. The starting of the cloud, AWS took the lead, started that, and then Microsoft came in, and then later on GCP, the Google Cloud came in, and they started even until now, when we talk about what is the definition of the cloud, you will see that it's a model. We don't have a concrete definition of what cloud is. It's because it's emerging field. And it's still, there are some continuous updates to its boundaries. That's because of the technological innovation that we continuously have in that domain. Now, similarly, the metaverse, we still do not have a standard protocol of communicating on the cloud. On communicating on the metaverse. So we don't have, if I tell you what is the best metaverse, you may say, I don't know, it depends on the use case. So there are some good metaverses, depending on the use case that you're trying to implement them for. Now, due to that lack of standardization, a new term was developed. It's called the intraverse. And the intraverse is like it's a community owned, with customized or customized towards specific audience, and then it's providing an implementation of that metaverse just for this group of people. Now, is that really implemented? Yes. So the DXC technology, they have, DXC technology, they have their own DXC virtual world, and they started holding events, company events, over their DXC virtual world. I'm going to show you the survey that they have sent it to the attendants, and it's showing a lot of positive features, although the metaverse is still considering an emerging field. Now, Accenture and Meta as well, Meta started that in 2020, but even Accenture now are onboarding their new employees, and they have welcomed about 150,000 visitors to what they call their nth floor, and that's just their intraverse term of, or the name of their intraverse, we call it nth floor. Now, I'm going to continue the discussion about the current state of the metaverse, but I want to head to some of our known users here of the metaverse. One of them is JP Morgan Chase. JP Morgan Chase announced officially that they are betting that the metaverse is going to be a $1 trillion opportunity per year by 2030. So see how big is the finance. That's an official note. I do have the article. It's an official notice from them, official announcement. So we're talking about something real here. This is where people can build a brand in innovation in. Siemens is collaborating with NVIDIA to build the first metaverse for industrial purposes. So that's also another opportunity. And those are current investments that are happening, and they have already published, and they added that as part of their strategic plan. Now I want to go back to my discussion about the note that was made about the DXC Technologies virtual world. I told you they held some events with 8,000 employees. They ran a survey after that, and 77% acknowledged that the DXC virtual world, their intraverse, was completely positive, and it added to their work. 87% said they even can use that once a week, at least once a week. Now, Gartner, which is R&D, it's expecting that by 2026, 25% of the people are going to be spending at least 1 hour a day on the metaverse, whether they're doing shopping, whether they're doing work, gaming, whatever. So you see here that there are some possibilities, some opportunities for the metaverse or for companies who are building products to expand in that domain. Now, I keep talking about the future, I keep talking about maybe some sort of intraverse experiences. Are there any companies who have actually realized benefits out of the metaverse? The answer is yes. So EY and Nokia, they released a report in June 2023, and that report, it surveyed 860 companies, and notice the numbers, for CapEx reduction and OpEx reduction, for example, they had initially expected that the metaverse is going to help them with 24% of improving their services. They realized after implementing that, a 15% increase on their initial expectation. Look at the sustainability, 10% increase. Safety improvement, 9%. And only 2% of those 860 companies really thought that, well, the metaverse is just a buzzword, or they call it a fad. So it's real. This is something that's happening, and those are real reports. we're talking here about things that definitely can shape the future of work and the future of the activities that can be happening. Now, before I head to that, I know we're supposed to have questions at the end, but any immediate questions? Anything that you guys would like to ask about before we head to the next segment? All right. Yes. Yes, there are what we call the 4D and 5D technologies now. So they have developed or built chairs where you can actually get just more than the experience. You can get like more of a touching experience or sensor-oriented experiences. Those have been already built, and there are already some products that are being leveraged. So when I talk about like build a room where you can interact directly with your customers in a bank, that's not going to be based on technologies that are not yet built. All of these have been built already, and you can, the sensing, features that are out there. Some features that are offering sensors, and I'm going to even give that kind of a heads up about something that I'm going to mention later. You now can even build an entire metaverse with generative AI, and so there are some companies that are leveraging generative AI with 3D printing to generate objects using generative AI. So it's like we're talking about everything can be automated at that kind of level. So, and it's to some extent it's scary, but being scary means full of opportunities. So I think we just need to find what's the best set of opportunities that would fit our business or use case and implement the metaverse in it. Yes?
Before the revitalization through Gen AI, were they always in place? When did that?
Good point. Those plans came in 2022, right with the generative AI thought. At some point, there was that, that kind of a bit of a roller coaster where the metaverse went through. Because once people started looking at the metaverse in 2020, there was a bit of time where the metaverse was the hype. Even the early startups or companies were getting a lot of fun just by having metaverse in their business model. Now, at some point in 2022, people have started to realize the boundaries of the metaverse, and this is when things started to slow down. The jump of generative AI and the fact that it solved some of the challenges that we'll talk about later for the metaverse has brought the metaverse back to life. Good question. All right, so now let's talk about some of what we're looking for the metaverse here in the past and the future. Now look at this. We're talking 2021. That's right after the Meta hype, 51 billion. Now notice the jump was really not that fast from 21 to 2023. That's because really the generative AI, we're talking about like less of 100% increase for an emerging industry. But notice the trajectory here. We're looking at the end of 2023 at 92 billion. This is not an estimate, this is a real number. 2024 estimated to be 120, and see where things are going. We're looking at $1.3 trillion industry market by 2030. Now, I quoted this from one source, but it's actually, there were two different research organizations that came up with very similar numbers. So definitely the observations that are there are, to help us think or believe that yes, well, the metaverse is actually evolving and it's jumping up in the positive right direction. And what's gonna be causing this change is what we're gonna talk about in 2 slides. That huge jump that's gonna happen. We'll talk about that, just keep that in mind. Now, I'm sorry here for the quality of this image. It's important to understand what is really the current metaverse industry market. The current market is mainly toward the banking, financial sector, and insurance, the BFSI. So that's really where the majority is. you will see that there are some investments right now. I'm talking about today. Some investments in the retail industry, some investments in in the tourism industry, and pretty much some other investments in many other directions. Like I talked about the NVIDIA collaboration with Siemens, that's going to bring the manufacturing firm up, and you will see a lot of improvements as well in other directions. Now I talked about the PNC example early on and how much savings we can get if bank like PNC, based on their current financial numbers, can save if they leveraged the metaverse. Let's talk about another domain that's called the telehealth. So the idea of the telehealth, we're expecting, well actually it's not like the spending of this physical year is expected to be $106 billion. So the overall spending in that is $106 billion. Now what we're looking for, the biggest challenge for the telehealth industry to evolve is really around the ability for the physician to examine you or to have that interactive experience. What we are looking for at this point is by leveraging the metaverse industry and maybe building things like the same concept of a small portable rooms that will be deployed across different geographic areas. The spending in that industry will jump from $106 billion to between $320 to $340 billion. At something that's one-stop shop, the whole idea of the physical examination and being a barrier for telehealth is actually what's discouraging a lot of people from using the telehealth industry. So if we can mimic that and provide real experience, or a virtualized immersive experience to the users, we're expecting it to be almost 3 times more. Again, how are these numbers calculated? Based on the number of visits, based on the statistics of why some users have noted that they do want to use telehealth, etc., etc., etc. Now, I want to keep in mind here that what we're looking at right now is that the metaverse is still in the emerging domain. So the companies are building what we call mini-verses, or those concept of intraverse. So companies are building silos. Each of them is having their own definition of the metaverse. And there are multiple metaverse architectures out there. There are multiple players. We're talking about Decentraland, we're talking about Roblox, we're talking about Meta. So there are really multiple players that are building metaverse-related architectures or virtual worlds in that industry, but they are all different silos. They are not really communicating among each other. As we evolve between 2024 and 2027, we're looking for things here to change. So we're going to be jumping to what we call advanced metaverse, where there is a convergence that happens to all of these metaverse products. There will be some level of interoperability between the different metaverses that are out there. Are these products actually there? Yes. I had the pleasure of participating in one project that discusses or that focuses on the metaverse ops. So like the concept of ML ops, like the concept of dev ops, we're trying to build something that's called metaverse ops. So that will, and there are lots of technical details here that we can discuss, but the point in here is to unify all of the different metaverses and standardize the way that whatever applications you have built, they're going to be in the metaverse in a standard way. So that effort of conducting that convergence, there are already some organizations that have started that effort. So there are really several. So like the Decentraland is one of them, Roblox, all of these companies that are building products. That product is more of it's mostly R&D. Like it doesn't, because there's really no standard definition of the metaverse yet, the companies have to do a bunch of research and bunch of technical architecture styling in order to come up with their view of what the metaverse entails and then build it. So that whole idea, it's more of an end-to-end innovation, build, deploy cycle, where pretty much a company will have to build. So the majority of the players that I have mentioned, they have R&D teams that are focusing on the metaverse building and deployment. Now, with 2023 and moving on, we're looking for things to change, and we're looking for a mature metaverse. And as I mentioned, I want to keep repeating this. Companies can build brand innovation by leveraging the metaverse into their business model. When we talked about generative AI 4 years ago, companies were really not, I want to say some people did not have a good faith into what generative AI can lead to. But actually we're now more confident about the future of this. And some companies out there are already doing it. They're already building it, and they're already getting money out of it. Now, in general, why would you adopt the metaverse? You're either trying to build like a reputation, by providing the customer with immersive experience, you're maybe trying to enable products and services with global accessibility, so people can access from all over the world rather than having to physically deploy there. You're trying to own your own technological competitive advantage or save operational costs. Like the examples that we have talked about, these are mostly driven by saving operational costs. Now, this is more of a roadmap here, because this is an emerging market, so it's the expectation of it is you would treat it as if it's like emerging domain. Now, what companies that need to adopt the metaverse in their body, they gotta have to start by educating the team. So have lunch and learn sessions, have brown bag sessions, where pretty much the team members would start communicate that information and start looking at what can we do, assess the industry and the market, look at what they can do, that kind of industry. Is the industry really open for the metaverse? If so, then in which areas, in which domains? And one thing you want to do, you want to define your metaverse strategy. You want to be able to think about, all right, well, what is what's my goal out of the metaverse? What are the goals that I'm trying to do? Am I trying to use it for saving operational costs? Am I trying to use it for building innovation? And prioritize these goals. Which ones you would like to achieve first, or which one you would like to achieve with higher priority. Then build the internal expertise, identify use cases that pretty much will keep building on top of that, and then we'll come to a point where you have to think about, well, now with the knowledge that we have, can we build a technology roadmap for our company based on our need? I wish there was like a quick answer to tell you, hey, go ahead and use that metaverse, that will solve all your problems. Unfortunately not. And this is the kind of the challenge of being an emerging domain. So there is a lot of learning that has to happen, but a lot of gains that can be earned. And you can invest in content and assets, engage with the different communities in order to understand how you can conduct convergence later on or participate in the convergence effort. And one of the big things is the whole idea of compliance and ethical considerations. That's always gotta have to be in the middle of the discussions or of the core of discussion. And then prototype and test, and you'll have to keep going into these iterations. So I will wrap up here shortly, but I want to just point out some of the challenges with the metaverse. There is nothing perfect, but metaverses, like most of the emerging markets, they face immediate challenges. One of them is hardware penetration, and then providing immersive experience by getting enough people in the metaverse. And some people, this is the egg and chicken problem, because until the hardware penetration rates are high enough, you won't be able to get people in the metaverse, or will we? Now, one of the big problems here, why would I have to open or join a virtual world that's no one else is in it except myself? So having or adding people to the metaverse is one of the challenges. Of course, the data security is a concept that always gonna have to be there, and the lack of development tools. And there are some companies who are building already some tools for this. Now, these two, the first two that you're seeing here on the screen, that's what generative AI came to address when adopted in the domain of the metaverse. How? Look at this. We're trying to build an actual 3D environment that's quite expensive. You're going to have a designer to build the world for you. You're going to have to pretty much identify how how the environment and how the interactions should happen, populate the world with enough participants, this is sophisticated, and provide personalized experiences. This is like very complex or very challenging. Now, there are companies that already do that or offer that. Now you may say, well, I'm probably exaggerating, that there are companies who's doing that. Earlier this year, actually just 2 or 3 months ago, a company that's called Lovely Studios, they have released a product that's called Niron, or Nirin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. And you pretty much can build an entire immersive world, virtual world, with a single text line command. And it will build an entire virtual world for you. And they are collaborating with a company called Polyhive to generate 4K characters and generate them in 5 minutes. They can generate the textures for these characters and include them in that virtual world. Literally, the entire process of building the virtual world is in less than an hour. So you're building an entire metaverse and using it, leveraging in less than 1 hour. So that's what, using the generative AI will help you elevate some of the upfront costs. You won't have to invest into designing a virtual world. It will simplify the integration of world building, and then will enable the content generation at scale. I'll be able to add content because yes, I can use generative AI. Some companies are using generative AI right now to build objects, real objects, using 3D printing. So you can do that for building virtual world elements as well. Now let's look at the trajectory for the generative AI market. And I know I'm probably going a bit over time here, so I will wrap up in the next couple of minutes. We're looking at $500 million just invested in the tools that will build the metaverse-related products by 2032. And if you notice that looks like the curve of the innovation that's happening, or the trajectory that's happening with the metaverse. And that's why that's happening, because most of the basic tools are actually going to be built in by 2027. And by that time, that will enable the metaverse to really act at scale. So that's also by, this statement by Frost and Sullivan, a research organization. They're saying that the generative AI models and the autonomous agents will be able to really accomplish various complicated tasks, and they will kind of replace the human intervention at some scale. Now, I want to wrap up with some takeaways. The metaverse domain, it's going to bring enormous number of opportunities for companies and organizations who are trying to leverage or expand their innovation or into a new domain, or restate their brand pretty much with respect to bringing innovative experiences, especially if they're offering customer-facing services. Now, it's emerging, but I want to keep in mind, executives should strategize on that right now. Because, we're already seeing enough positive signs that would make us believe that there are future great opportunities in that domain. Start small. If you're starting this into the company, start small, be patient. Only 52% of adults right now are either very or somewhat familiar with the term metaverse. It's still new. It's still, in the very early phases. To some people. Then take your time when selecting the platform. Make sure that this cycle goes for several times before you come up with a decision on what you're really going to build for your company. And make sure that you have a well-established security and risk management team to take care of the due diligence that's needed for offering metaverse-related services. Any questions? Yes.
Slide, I noticed that you didn't have is there any network challenges? I mean, this rich content, all these experiences, are networks today capable of delivering this?
That's a very good point. So regarding the whole infrastructural challenges, some of the innovations that are happening with the Web 3.0 is actually the edge AI and the concept of edge computing. So if I go back here, that's why we said that the metaverse is going to be fully enabled with Web 3.0. The edge computing and the leveraging the fog computing and fog infrastructure, which there are several companies that are already doing some good work here with blockchain technologies, that will continue to enable or help us provide or less the traffic, or go with lesser traffic in the network, because it will outsource the computation at the edges of the nodes and therefore keep only the core communication that has to happen over the network. So it's an evolving challenge. It's an evolving challenge. But what I meant here with those challenges, those are kind of the metaverse specific challenges. But the kind of network thing is something that we already know it's gonna face. It's facing almost a lot of the industries at this point with trying to scale up to meet larger demands. Very good question. Other questions? Yes.
I'll ask the similar question, so maybe you can help me out here. I mean, you can select a given platform to equal a simple thing, or whatever you're trying to do. But is there a way to select within that platform tools to scrub the data so that it's accurate, it's not fake, it's not like a hallucination?
Very good point. So I think, oh, I'm sorry, yes, sorry. So the question here is about, is there a way for us to re-vet the data that are being generated or the communications that are happening over the metaverse? Did I get your question right? Yes. So absolutely correct. Now, I wish I had the time to do that. The metaverse architecture had separate layer for a filtration purposes. So there will be a layer, and you be using one off the box, or something that you could be using by leveraging some other activities. So whether you're going with this or that, yes, you can definitely filter content at the metaverse. Now, the limitation to this is whatever filtration that you're building at this point is going to be just limited to the metaverse segment. So we still have to, either someone has to do this manually by conducting the conversions from the metaverse to other segments or potential other revenue streams that we're expecting similar customer communication to happen, or either a product will come out, or someone at the company will have to build something to handle that manually. No, question? Other questions? Let me just hit here to the last screen. I kept going. Oops. All right, you ready? Well, thank you, everyone. It was great having